Hello and welcome dear learners to the NPTEL course on Nutritional Epidemiology, a way towards a healthy life. For the Module 3 Dietary Assessment, Nutritional Status and Measurement Error for the Chapter 35, we will be talking about validation, calibration and adjustment methods. So it will discuss about the validation studies, calibration techniques, statistical corrections, reproducibility versus validity and case discussion with respect to this topic. So we'll try to understand what is validation, calibration and adjustment methods. In nutritional epidemiology, the accurate measurement of a dietary exposure is notoriously complex. So you can understand what I want to tell you, that random and systematic measurement errors are ambiguous. Okay, it can lead to attenuated effect estimates. It will reduce the statistical power and potentially spurious associations. So you have to go with understanding what this topic will deal about, the associations. The associations of validation, where validation determines whether an instrument measure the true intake. So validation is something which is giving you an assurance on the part. Okay. Where versus the calibration is something which is correcting the errors using the reference measurement. So there is a calibration which will give you more specification towards the reference. Then that is the statistical adjustment that you have to do, which is sometimes very important, which improves the comparability and removes the confounding. So there is a confounding error which can be reduced with this, especially by total energy intake. So these are the three things. Why are these measurements and these methods necessary? So for understanding the true intake, dietary instrument, that is FFQ and 24 hours recall, measurement errors that we have discussed in the previous chapters, and biased relative risk, where the risk is something which we are trying to associate with the diet and the disease. What it is needed for is like need for validation, calibration and adjustment. So these three things are coming as A, B, C. Okay. Now we'll try to talk about the validation studies. Validation evaluates how accurately does a dietary instrument measure diet intake. So we have dietary questionnaire, we have apps and we have biomarkers. Okay. So what is the habitual food habit is more towards pointing towards whether it is calculated from the questionnaire, from the apps or biomarkers. So why are validation necessary? So it is like to assess the systematic bias, which is but obvious, quantifying the random error, which is something which is difficult to understand, and determine the subject ranking, where you can say determining the subject ranking prevalent at understanding the habitual food and estimating the attenuation and developing the correction factors for that part. What are the components of a validation study? It is like a true instrument that you have to develop, where you will have a paper FFQ, you will have a 24-hour recall, a food dietary and a smartphone app. The reference instrument may come up like with a protein intake, energy intake, sodium intake, carotenoids and habitual diet, which will give you all your reference method over here. Now designing a validation study. The need is like when you have to take a step 1, you need to select the sample, which may be from the age group like 20 to 60 years to 100 adults. Okay. Step 2, administer them with FFQs, blood and urine biomarkers. Step 3, administer the reference of interviewer, weighting, or you may say the equipments and biomarkers. What is the step 4? It gives you the comparison between correlation coefficient, mean differences, planned alternate plots and cross classification, sensitivity and specificity. What is the purpose of doing this? The purpose is like to method to under evaluation, and reference is the gold standard. Example is FFQ, where weighing the food records. Errors are larger, particularly over here, where versus the reference instrument it is smaller. So I just want to state over here that recovery biomarkers, something you may say, are independent and unbiased, where versus the concentration biomarkers affected by metabolism, and dietary records, where we can say that they are giving you more validation as confirmation. Okay. Now we will talk about calibration techniques. So calibration uses data from validation studies to create equation that adjust dietary intake estimates, and from the test instrument reducing the measurement errors bias in the diet association. So there is a reporting intake versus an expected time. So when you talk about the very three important method, regression comes as first, where regression calculation or regression calibration is something which will give you a procedure which is approximately unbiased and estimate of the true relative risk. So the concept of having regression calibration is like regression calibration is the most widely used method in nutritional epidemiology for adjusting the measurement error, because it replaces the reported dietary intake in risk models with expected values of true usual intake predicted from the reported intakes and covariants. So there is very important that you have to do this application, and you have to take when regression calibration is appropriate, you have to use it. Then comes this correlation coefficient, that is, and the attenuation factors. What is the reason of doing this? It is more like the correlation between a self-reported intake, that is from your Q, and a true intake, what is you are taking actual, is determined in the study's statistical power. Wherever says the attenuation factors is like it describes the extent to which the true relative risk or the odds ratio is biased towards the null due to the measurement error. So there is a benefit that you may come up actually to have a use of correlation coefficient. There is also a way of triangulation approach. Triangulation is something which is not a midway, but yes, there is an collaboration, or you can say compilation of three methods, where you will have FFQ as first, second as 24 hours recall, and biomarkers as the third one. So what is the assumption that you are trying to take this and make this more in a way to help you? What is the mathematical framework? You will have a triangulation where you come across to see that this is a triangle which is being made over here. Okay. So this triangle will help you to give an exact understanding that your recall bias or your biomarkers or your FFQs are coming over you to give you. So where you come across this intent actually to see that this give you the triangulation approach to mix actually for this part to give a better advantage. The advantages are listed as estimates the validity for corrected errors. Okay, it complements actually, because it complements is like it's like a supporting actually towards your finding. Provides improved estimates towards for the FFQ and correlation with the true intake. Okay, allows validation with no single gold standard exists, because there is no such as a gold single standard exists, which is the more benefit that triangulation is being very much applicable. What is the practical application that we can say? FFQ estimates fatty acid intake. 24 hours recall provides a reference dietary estimate, and plasma fatty acid serves as the biomarker. Triangulation estimates the validity coefficient for each method. So you can say that the triangulation is something which is giving you more benefits which are listed over here. Now we will talk about statistical correction. So regression calibration, as you have understood, it is more benefiting to correct the attenuation bias due to measurement error. It is like a procedure which will give you very unbiased estimation of diet and disease association, which is our purpose. And regression calibration requires a validation study with a reliable reference method or a biomarker. And regression calibration can be used using an internal or external calibration equation. So when we talk about the energy adjustment model, why to study total energy? So controlling the confounding, which is sometimes very important actually to overcome with respect to obesity, physical activity, body size and sex, and reducing the measurement error, over reporting or under reporting or social desirability which comes over here, and assessing the dietary composition. So when you have to investigate nutrient substitution while holding calorie constant, this is called isocaloric concept. Okay, so isocaloric, like a person A has fat 20% is equal to 2000 calories per day. So person B will have fat 40%, but The energy is constant but composition differs. You may see the composition are totally different. Energy is constant. Both of them have 2000 calories. Okay. But the fat is 20% over here. The fat is 40% over here. But the calories which are given by the fat is equal to giving you 2000 calories. And the fats of 20% from this particular person A is also giving you the same calorie. So, disease difference can be attributed to the dietary composition rather than the calorie intake. So, you don't have to concentrate more on the calorie part over here. Okay. So, what are the different adjustment models of energy? One is a standard model, second is the nutrition dietary model, and the third is the residual model. What is the summary that the role of a correlation can come in terms of correction? I want to say over here that measurement error, there is and the bias in association and statistical correction. So, what is the better inference? Lead to more accurate estimation of stronger evidence of dietary effects. So, it is very important to have a statistical correlation to be understood in a proper way. Now, reproducibility versus validity. So, reproducibility, it is vital to distinguish between these two psychometric properties when evaluating an instrument. So, there are two things which comes where there is a great problem actually to differentiate, where on the reproducibility part it is consistency and validity it is accuracy. The question comes over is that is the measurement repeatable, and in validity is the measurement correct. So, repeat is being seen over here as more to be understood, where versus here it is a correction which is more moving towards the validity. What is the comparison? It is like a same method, and when you do a comparison, where versus in validity, that is a reference method where you are trying to correlate actually for that part. In statistics, you can say it is ICC and correlation which will give you the reproducibility, where versus for validity you have to do with correlation and bland ultim. What are the examples? Examples is like FFQs repeated after every 6 months, and in validity FFQs compared with dietary record. So, dietary record is something which you will come with the DR part, and FFQ which is being plus, which will give you the validity, where FFQ there is repetition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, again you will have to do a repetition over here. So, you can understand over here from one of the very important example that I have given over here. A bathroom scale always shows 2 kilogram more. Okay, reproducibility yes, and validity it is stating no. So, likewise an FFQ may consistently overestimate intake and therefore have a good reproducibility but a poor validity. So, these two terms are something that you have to differentiate with respect to how they are being calculated with respect to the examples that you have to take it, whether it is being taken in comparison, whether it is taken in terms of the reference. Now, we will have a case discussion. The case title is like how accurate is the food frequency questionnaire, improving dietary assessment through validation, calibration and energy adjustment. In this case study is taken more on 500 adults. The age group is 30 to 65 and they were being provided with semi-quantitative FFQs. The outcome was cardiovascular disease. And what are the key questions that were asked? How valid is the FFQ? Can the errors be corrected? How to adjust the total energy intake? And is the FFQ reproducible? So, there is a question on reliability over here. So, in the validation study, the test instrument was semi-quantitative FFQ. Reference was 24 hours recall over 1 year and the biomarkers were plasma carotenoids. So, the FFQ, the total fat intake was coming 82%. In the 24 hours recalls which were taken, it was coming 74, and the biomarker supported estimate was coming 76. So, what is the observation? FFQ tended to overestimate fat intake. So, in FFQ it was showing 82%, okay, which was little higher. Assessment of validity. So, moderate to good adjustment, and you may see FFQ can rank individuals reasonably well. Reproducibility adjustment. reproducibility, but high reproducibility does not guarantee validity. Okay, measurement errors and attenuation, you may see that initial analysis was like RR is equal to 1.2, but in attenuation factors it was 0.60. So measurement error weakened the observed association and biased results from the null. So you have to take ahead the different steps: regression, calibration, triangulation approach where you are mixing all the three, and energy adjustment, which is very important when you have to take the standard model, reducible model, and nutrition density model. Even isocaloric concept, which is very important to see that 2000 calories are estimated from both the people and exactly they are coming, but their energy intake was completely different. What are the final findings? The final findings are moving towards giving that the correlation coefficient was 0.58, reproducibility coefficient was 0.82, and the attenuation factors were 0.60. So you can understand that FFQ showed good reproducibility, moderate validity with repeated recalls, and the researchers' conclusion was coming like the measurement errors caused attenuation of association. Regression calibration improved estimation of true intake, and triangulation FFQ plus recall plus biomarker strengthened the variability. Now you will say that what is there where the energy adjustment is being seen? The energy adjustment of reducible and density accounted for total caloric differences. Isocaloric models allowed interpretation independent versus energy intake. So in this case study, you can understand how the improving dietary assessment through validation and calibration and energy adjustment was done, where it was more towards understanding the age group like a mid-age population towards the higher age group of population. So with this, we have come into this chapter where the validation, calibration and adjustment methods are being seen as very essential tools in nutritional epidemiology. The reason is like it is more towards improving the accuracy of the dietary assessment and minimizing the measurement error. The major pointing over here is the measurement error we have to concentrate more on. Okay. For validation study, you have to compare a test instrument such as FFQ, that is food frequency questionnaire, with reference method, that is additional, such as repeating the dietary calls or taking the biomarkers in use, and to assess its validity. So validity is also something which is very important after the measurement error that we have understood in this chapter. Then the calibration techniques, which are including the regression, calibration, help us to understand the correct measurement error, and they reduce the attenuation of diet and disease association. Diet and disease association is something which is more pointed as very highlight, while the correlation coefficient and attenuation factors quantify the agreement and the bias. So you can understand correlation coefficient and attenuation factors give you more the benefits towards understanding the agreement and the bias. Then lastly, we have discussed on triangulation. Triangulation using multiple methods, that is FFQ, recalls and biomarkers. So there is a triangulation which was stated and which have given you the benefits to understand like how it is providing you the more robust estimate of true intake. Okay, so true intake is something which is our target to understand like how true intake is to be understood only with the help of the triangulation. Statistical adjustment method, particularly energy adjustment model, which accounts for total energy intake and allow interpretation of nutrient effects under the isocaloric condition. So isocaloric condition was also being seen with respect to the subjective adjustability. So together these approaches enhance the reliability and validity of dietary exposure, which estimates and strengthen the conclusion drawn from nutrition research. Okay. So with this, we have come into this chapter, bidding you bye actually towards taking you more importance towards understanding the references which are stated over here. So you can use this, and this will give you more help actually towards understanding the topic. Lot of references from the journals and books are cited over here. Thank you very much.